Dubai's food scene has become one of the best in the world. We have brands coming from all 4 points of the globe, as well as amazing homegrown brands. Our guest today has a company that has been behind some of those brands. So although you've probably not ever met him personally, you've definitely come across his brands and had at least one bite in one of his restaurants. Walid Hajj, how are you?
Let's hope so. Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
Pleasure.
You're the founder of Lavoya Group and some groups before that, behind some of the biggest names that we've had and we have in town. I think of Za'atar Uzait, I think of Cinnabon, I think of Barbar, I think of Sharif Cafe now. So you are somebody who's done a lot for this city, a lot for the people who are listening to us, because people are in touch with these brands on a daily basis. So thanks for being with us. And I wanted to start with talking about you, who you are. Of course, you're an accomplished businessman and you've built a great business, but who are you as Walid? People don't know you. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? What did you study? What brought you to the point where we are today?
So, thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
It's a pleasure to see you, first of all, and thank you for having me. I'm Walid Hajj. I'm originally Palestinian. I'm son of two Palestinian who, immigrated from Palestine, left as refugees, went to Lebanon briefly, and then settled in Saudi Arabia. And my siblings and I were all born in Saudi Arabia. I consider myself Saudi. Obviously, the Palestinian roots is deep-rooted in me, and it's there. But
so you're nationalized Saudi?
I am. Okay. I was born Saudi.
One of the few, or one of the rare.
Yeah, my father again moved to Saudi Arabia in 1949. Lived there for a few years, worked with the late Sulaiman Alayan, worked with his company, and then eventually became Saudi. At that time, it was a little bit different than what it is now. But I was born there and lived all my life in Saudi Arabia. As a kid, I remember having a wonderful childhood. Honestly, sort of a textbook childhood. Youngest of five kids, living in a house full of love, full of attention, full of fun, and just sweet and amazing memories. And I grew up also in a house where, I saw my father become an entrepreneur, and sort of grew with and in his business. As a young kid, I remember, my weekends, we didn't have phones where, you spend screen times and so on. But as a kid, I used to go and spend time in his office, make coffee. And
what industry was he in?
In the food industry, as well. But it was more, he started as a trading, importing and exporting, and then became manufacturing, never in restaurants. Until I then, branched out later on.
So speaking of that, at what point did you say, or how far back can you remember where you said to yourself, one day I'm going to do restaurants. One day I want to get into restaurants. I want to get into bringing brands.
I never got to that point. I never had that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I never did. And honestly, it sort of reflects on who I am and how I do things in general. I am not, I'm a very sort of forward thinker and a planner and structured thinker and so on. But I don't like to overthink.
What did you study?
What did I study?
Yeah.
So I studied industrial management, and then I did my master's MBA.
In the States, right?
In the States, yeah.
Okay.
So I always, sort of played by ear. I live day to day.
I like that.
I like to enjoy my moment. Even, I tell my kids these days as well, don't worry too much about the future. Don't overanalyze. Just live day to day and try to be happy at the moment.
Yeah. Well, you've led many brands, right? To name a few, as I was saying, Za'atar Uzait, Joe and the Juice, Barbar, Sharif, Five Guys, and so on and so forth. Some of the biggest names in let's call it casual food or casual dining in town. But people don't know about the failures.
Yeah.
Right? We know about your successes, clearly. We know about your successes and great successes. Congratulations on that. Tell us a story about failure. Tell us a story that, people think that you get in and you either get lucky and everything works out, or you just fail and you move on.
Yeah.
But what people don't know is that there's a mix of both.
Yeah.
So you've succeeded clearly on a lot of the stuff that you've done, but you've also failed. Share an experience of failure. That
George, thank you so much for asking that question, because honestly, that I think if your goal of this podcast is to inspire people and give them the right advice, failure is a must.
Very much part of it.
Is a much important point to be talked about. And I think, people are afraid of failures. And I, proudly say that I failed many, many times. The biggest one,
many times,
many times, and I tell you the biggest one. So in 2008, I was at the time with my previous company. I had founded a company called Cravia in 2000. We have Zaatar Uzayt, Cinnabon, Seattle's Best Coffee, Five Guys. But before that, we had two brands at the time, Cinnabon and Seattle's Best Coffee, and Zaatar Uzayt. And, three of them were phenomenally successful, commercially, financially.
I've given you a lot of money in Zaatar Uzayt,
God bless you.
Back in the partying
Thank
days.
you so much. But sometimes you become almost the victim of your own success.
Yeah.
You think everything you're going to touch is going to turn into gold. So anyway, we acquired a brand from Lebanon called Roadster Diner. And
which was very popular in Lebanon.
It was the number one brand in Lebanon in casual dining. It was beating all the international brands in Lebanon. And, we thought it will be a phenomenal success in Dubai, right?
And why
it's
not?
logical,
Yeah.
and why not? And, there was a lot of overlap of ownership as well from the ownership of Zaatar Uzayt, the owners of Zaatar Uzayt and the owners of Roadster.
Just made natural sense.
So it was the natural growth for us. We got the brand. We spent a lot of money. I remember telling my late father that this brand's going to either make us or break us. And he said, I hope it's the first, not the latter. And it was actually the latter. So we opened 3 huge locations. We spent, at that time, 25 million dirhams on these 3 locations. We were
wow, that's a lot.
Very small company at the time. So it was a major investment from our side. And it was an absolute flop. When we opened our doors, people were lining up, so people recognized the brand.
So you were like, "This is going to be
Lebanese,"
amazing. Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh my God, it's another successful one. That's amazing." But then something was not right. The quality of the product, not necessarily the quality, but the consistency of the product between Dubai and Beirut was different. People were disappointed. They didn't get what they wanted, and I was shattered. I was absolutely shattered, not just because of the financial loss, but also,
personal, it's ego, it's pride.
It touches your ego a little bit.
But this is something that entrepreneurs go through a lot, and they have to get used to it.
But it's honestly the best thing that can happen to you because it puts you
because
down.
You had some successes before that.
Yes.
And despite those successes, this one still shattered you.
Well, it shattered me then.
Yeah.
Today, I speak about it with absolute, sort of love because I honestly learned so much from it. And I think it grounded me.
Yeah.
It grounded me not as a person, but as a business person, looking at opportunities, understanding that failure is actually, the other side of success. It both can happen, regardless of the reason of the failure. And we can talk about that separately. But the experience itself, going through something like that, and then the hard part, which is really sort of withdrawing back and closing and going back and saying, oh, I did a mistake.
Winding down, yeah.
I'm winding down these 3 stores. I'm writing off all these kind of, investments.
Very tough.
Extremely tough.
Yeah.
Extremely tough.
Yeah.
And it can be devastating as well. Can wipe up companies. We were lucky that we stayed, we continued to survive. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's very good. Thanks for sharing with that, because it's important that entrepreneurs know that despite the failures, you can always bounce back and come back with resounding successes.
Sure.
What's one personal habit or mindset that's been, in your opinion, key to your success? You told me before that you like to go with the flow, and you like to read and react as you go, rather than mega planning everything. What is one mindset that or maybe that's the one that's helped you, in your opinion, become successful and stay successful?
I think that is that comes to mind as the the predominant or the number one mindset. It really is more valuable than people think. It just doesn't necessarily bring success alone. To me, what it brought is happiness. And I think if you forget business for a while, even in your day to day, you meet someone, you like someone as a friend, you start considering spending more time with them and so on. If you start over analyzing their personalities and stuff like that,
you wouldn't be friends with anyone.
You wouldn't be friends with anyone. And really that's the key. And if you worry about, I have some friends who would actually write daily diaries, right? And that's amazing. I mean, I'm not saying anything about that. Goals. My goal for the next week.
Living on the Excel sheet.
And then comparing them next week. And you know what? They are
miserable.
The most miserable people I know. Honestly,
I'm a lot like you. I'm a freestyler. So
I mean, at the end of the day, if you focus on what you're doing, but enjoy the moment. And this is what I also tell my kids. They're on their phone all the time, but you really need to understand that these moments don't come back, and you need to really enjoy the moment. And it applies to business, applies to life, applies to family, applies everywhere else.
I agree. Did people ever tell you you're crazy? You're crazy for bringing this brand. You're crazy for thinking that you're going to succeed with this. You're crazy to spend this kind of money to invest into
all
something.
the time. And this is my favorite, adjective that I get. When we got Zaatar Rosette, I remember, people telling me, close friends telling me, "Are you crazy? Why? I mean, this is a Manouche concept. You can do it. Why do you want to get a franchise and pay money for it?" When we got Five Guys, I remember also, close family members telling me, to the extent that you're crazy, because basically I've wagered everything on that brand, and it turned out, we opened in Riyadh, and it was the best store in the world for a long time, and ended up selling the company on the back
a big
of that.
multiplier.
Well, regardless of that, but on the back of the success of a brand like that. So the idea was really, I think, the crazier you are, the
more bold you are.
The more that a reflection of you taking risks and going out there and being ballsy.
And it's they say no risk, no glory.
Absolutely.
To finish this segment about Walid and who Walid is, what is the one sacrifice that you think is a leitmotiv, or that has come across your career so far, that people don't see or people don't know about? People see Walid today, and I can tell you this as a friend. People say, Walid has an amazing house. He's, let's say, filthy rich. He's this, he's that. He's done amazingly well. But what is it that people don't realize, that the price that you've had to pay to get to this point, right? Whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's your mental health, whatever it is. What this show's called Real Talk. So talk to me real about what is it that the price, what is it that's been difficult and that's been a big sacrifice that people don't see or cannot see unless you tell them about it.
I wake up every morning thanking my God for his blessings. I've been lucky. You're right. I mean, I have a lot of things today that a lot of people don't have, and I consider myself privileged and absolutely lucky.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, and I say Alhamdulillah every morning. What are the sacrifices? To be honest, I don't want to dramatize. There wasn't a lot of sacrifices. The one thing that comes to mind when you ask me that question is, I lived all my life in Saudi Arabia. I am born in, around a family that also has a very well-established reputation and name and business and, infrastructure and, whatever in Saudi Arabia. So moving from Saudi to Dubai in 2002, was a bit of a, quote unquote compromise, because basically, you're taking that tree out of this,
your comfort zone
and putting it somewhere. We came here, we knew absolutely no one, and I am absolutely no one coming here. Nobody knew me. I was just like any other ordinary person.
Like all us expats, basically. Yeah.
Right. And with time, my son the other day was telling me, he said, how did you get to know all these people? And I said, honestly, I don't know.
And you're absolutely right. It's a good point you bring out. People, when they see us, as like, I mean, I left Lebanon when I was 7, or for similar reasons as your parents, because of the war, and went to Canada. And then I left Canada when I was 26 or 25 and a half years old, 26 years old. That's 20 years ago. And I came here, and people don't see that this was actually a bold move, a scary move. Yeah. I sacrificed my friendships. I sacrificed the career that I had. I sacrificed, like you said, my surroundings of family and household and all that to come into the unknown. And people see it more as a, how would I say this? Luck, or you went to Dubai at the right time, or whatever.
Lucky,
but what they don't realize is that we made bold moves of moving from lives that were pretty stable and growing into something absolutely unknown and something completely unknown.
Totally, and so the compromises are there. I think it's a major compromise. But one of the things, I think it's interesting to bring up in this podcast. I think about my father. So I remember when my father established his business. I was a young kid at the time, but he told us this story. He was working with Al Ayan Group. He was earning a good, decent money. at that time,
Yeah.
800 riyals a month. He
Huge.
always
For
used
the
to
time,
tell us.
yeah.
He was supporting.
He'll always remind you that, or he always remind
Yeah,
you
Allah
that.
yarhamu.
Yeah,
But
Allah
and
yarhamu.
he always used to tell us this story. But basically, he was supporting himself, his family, his parents, elderly parents who were in Lebanon, and 3 or 4 of his siblings who were going to different kinds of schools all over the world, right? In Beirut, in Egypt, and so on.
On 800 riyals.
On 800 riyals. And he was extremely happy, right? And then one day he said, I want to do my own business, especially after he got the Saudi citizenship.
Yeah.
He said, I want to do my own business. And he was so excited about it. He got into it immediately. He resigned from his job, put everything he owned into that business. And he told us this story. He said, when I was in my new office and above our new warehouse where all the food, was stored and so on, I sat there and I looked at the statements and what I was doing, and then it hit me that I put everything in this business, and I started putting my face on the palm of my hand and started crying because you know what? I'm gonna let everybody down. My parents, my sisters, my families, my whatever, and. To me, that is the core of entrepreneurship. That's the epitome of entrepreneurship. All in, so to speak. And the idea that you can do that with your livelihood and everything you have is honestly, I don't know if I can do that. I was never in a situation where I
people
can
don't
do
give entrepreneurs enough credit for that, especially people living or sitting comfortably in their jobs and in positions where they're paid a monthly salary. They don't give enough credit to entrepreneurs about the risk that they've taken.
100%.
Right? So you hear a lot of bad things being said about people that succeeded. You hear good things in fairness as well. He's smart, he's great, he was, he had big cojones, he's, all that. But I don't think that the risk taken by entrepreneurs is appreciated enough. So thanks for bringing that out. Okay, we've talked about Walid, the person, which is important to kind of look at the background and where that person's come from, how he was thinking and so on. Let's talk now about the business. Let's talk a bit more about Lavoya.
Yeah.
Another successful business that you've built. You were involved in Cravia before. What sparked the beginning of Lavoya, or how did that transition happen?
So we, again, day to day,
Yeah.
if you want to have that as a theme, we were building Cravia little by little, brand by brand, store by store, to an extent where in 2016, Cravia became a very sizable business, about 90 locations.
That's huge. And how long did you build 90 locations?
It took us about 17 years.
Okay.
So we got to that level, and then we had 5 brands, 4 markets, good, very profitable, very good business. And then, we were approached to be bought out by a private equity firm. And at that point, I started actually questioning, what is that the right move or not?
Were you approached, or were you looking to sell?
I wasn't looking
That's
to sell.
important for people who have a business.
Yeah,
today.
no, I was not looking to sell at the time.
Yeah.
We were approached originally by a different party, and then that didn't work out. And then I started.
So the word
the
came
idea,
out
the idea
that
came.
he's open to it.
Yeah, and even the idea to me became even more.
Of course.
Susceptible. That's something that I could do.
Yeah.
So when we eventually had a serious offer on the table, I started thinking about, is this the thing that I want to do? And to be honest, I found that I was less and less enjoying my day-to-day work.
And that's very important.
To me, that's the number one
Yeah.
criteria. I mean, I like to wake up every morning liking what I'm doing, where I'm going.
If you're
and who
anything
I'm
like
dealing
me,
with.
there's no difference between life and work. Work is part of life.
It's
and life
all
is part of work.
when you asked me about the sacrifices and stress. I mean,
didn't have a straight
We don't.
answer,
I mean, we can't tell you because
I agree.
they overlap. I
Yeah,
mean, I sit at home watching TV with my wife and we talk business.
Yeah.
Really, about
or you
my
can
business.
be at 4 a.m. sending a message about the business.
I
and
do
that's-
that all the time.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. So when that came about, I thought, you know what, it might be a good opportunity from a money perspective. I'll be very open.
Take some
about
money
it.
off the table. Yeah,
Of course. And at the same time, maybe it's a chance for me to restart. Whether, at that time, I didn't realize I want to restart in the same sector. I thought maybe, at this point, I'll do something more.
especially when you
bigger
get to
picture.
a point where you've exited and you've exited.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to start from scratch.
Yeah,
again.
yeah. You say, I don't want to be
Sounds so far.
operational again.
Yeah.
I want to be more a board director or an investor. But honestly, that goes out of the window later on because once that sale happened, I took some time off and, I started toying around with these ideas. I really want to get my hands dirty again. This is what drives me. This is what motivates
Comes
me.
naturally, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, that's what happened. And, a few years after we started to create Lavoya. And Lavoya went through in 3.5 years, what we went through in 15 years with
Yeah,
Cravio.
because
So-
you had that experience and you
right.
fast-tracked it.
The growth numbers and the size and so on, we grew the business today. So we have 50 stores today.
So how did you decide on that on the Lavoya lineup, right? On Joe and the Juice, Barbar, Dave's Hot Chicken, all that. How do you decide on these concepts? Anyways, you just go to the US and you have somebody say, hey, this is good, I'm going to talk to these guys? Or
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it starts like that. It starts with me being exposed to the brands and what's out there, and it started with Barbar.
Because I remember talking to you about Barbar. I mean, Barbar is not like you're going to talk to McDonald's or you're going to talk to one of these big brands, right? Barbar is a guy that I would imagine started at the corner.
So was Za'atar Uzayt when
it's
we
true,
got them. It was the exact same thing. They had 2 stores in Lebanon. But I felt that there was a potential, and it was right at the end of COVID.
Yeah.
So, when
They were
everybody...
hurting. Yeah. They were hurting.
They were hurting, but also there was a trend in the market. Everybody started going cloud and delivery. And I got
Dark
into
kitchens
cloud
or
as
whatever
well.
they call
I
it,
got
yeah.
into dark kitchens and it didn't work out, and I didn't like the experience. But made me realize that, at the end of the day, we're going to get out of COVID. At the end of the day, people need these experiences. You're not going to be living virtual all your life.
No,
it doesn't matter what you're not going to be ordering things from, your app just because it looks good. You have to have that experience. So from an experiential perspective, we said, okay, what category are we looking at? And I felt that, this Lebanese street food casual street food is lacking in Dubai.
You're absolutely right.
At that time, at least, now it's crowded, obviously, but
As usual.
So I approached them, and it was the right time for them as well. So we started with that, and then I was talking to Joe and the Juice even before that, before Barbar, but they were not ready to.
Is it Lavoya's biggest brand now, Joe and the Juice?
Yes,
you'd
it
say?
is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's everywhere, man. Everywhere I go in
Yeah,
town,
we
I
have
see Joe and the Juice.
26 locations.
Incredible.
This concept, I think, is really a superstar brand globally. I think it's going to be, it's going to take over
Subway
from Starbucks and so on and so forth. They have, first of all, there's a big company behind it. There's a big, private equity company behind it, General Atlantic. They have an amazing management
I don't know
team.
it was General Atlantic, yeah.
Just recently, they got acquired. But then they have an amazing management team that knows what they're doing. They have an amazing, sort of vibe to the brand, if you like, and they have an amazing offering. So today, it's a personal. You go in, you feel like it's personal, it's healthy, it's light, and it tastes good. So and then so on and so forth. And the other brands also fell through that.
Walid, what's harder, to bring a new brand and start it up, or to keep a brand running for a longer time?
Tough question. I think starting something is always the most difficult part.
Yeah.
But also, having consistency. I always tell my team and people who invest with us and so on. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do with Lavoya is we're not trying to build a company of 3 brands. We're trying to build a platform.
Yeah.
Right. So today, if you look at Lavoya today versus after 15 years from now, you could see that some brands that exist today in our portfolio may not be there.
Yeah.
And some new brands will come in.
Yeah.
So the idea is that as long as you have that platform that is able to, add and subtract brands, bring in, bring out brands, I think that's what's most important, because tastes change. Trends change, and there will always be something new coming up that's going to take over something. So as long as you have the ability to plug and play and put these into your platform very quickly, I think that's the key to success in that.
Nice. What's one thing about the Dubai restaurant industry that people from outside the industry don't know, or that it will not, a consumer or a guy like me who's not in that industry doesn't know?
Look, I think this sector is the sexiest sector from the outside and the least sexiest sector from the inside.
How so?
The amount of details that it takes to actually run a restaurant.
That's true.
And not just run it.
Yeah.
Run it safely, right? Food safety is a big issue.
Compliance, yeah.
Right. Secondly, run it with consistency and quality, because people love you today. If you're not good tomorrow,
It's things you don't think about, right? How do you produce the exact same ingredient or the exact same piece of food every day with the exact same taste day after day after day after day?
It takes so much attention to details. It's almost sickening as to how much, seriously.
Yeah, I
as
can
to-
imagine, because
as
I
to-
haven't thought of that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, say the amount of
Like if
details.
I make a grilled cheese sandwich at home, it'll taste different every time. How do you make it consistently taste the same thing?
Right, so you have to get the same ingredients. You
Yeah.
have to make sure that they're put in the same way,
For the same time.
same time.
Yeah.
You know, also grilled to the same temperature at the same, with the same period of time, presented in the same way. Not just that it has to taste the same way. So this consistency is really the biggest challenge in this business, and the amount of details that go into it are just endless.
Do you think Dubai is oversaturated in terms of F&B, or do you think there's still opportunity? Obviously, if you're still in this business, you'd say there's still opportunity. But I hear it all the time. There's too many offerings. There's too much offering. Too many restaurants. Too many this. Too many that. What's your view on that?
So look, on the franchise.
You just opened one recently with Sharif Cafe, which is people are lining up in front.
Yeah. So I think there will always be opportunities. I think it's how do you find these opportunities? And it's not just, people say, oh, you have to figure out what people want. It's not just what people want. It's what people want and don't know that they want. Sometimes you offer them something that they've never been exposed to. Maybe I have been, but, to bring it over to them. The biggest, whether the market is saturated or not, if there's, I think McKinsey issued a study recently that looked at the number of restaurants per capita around different cities in the world. And Dubai ranked number 3 after Paris and New York.
Really?
Yeah. So
is it that saturated?
It's very saturated. Definitely very saturated. I mean, if you on the franchise side, I can tell you, there are franchises that exist somewhere in the middle of nowhere in the US, and the next thing you see is they're opening up in Dubai. So there is also you have to understand that there is this pull factor, and by that I mean you have a lot of investors, a lot of people who have money who want to do this business, and the easiest way to do it is through franchising. So they throw money sometimes at these brands, not necessarily successfully,
and not knowing how to run them.
And not knowing how to run them and how to operate them, and that becomes an issue.
Which segment do you think is lacking? I have an answer to this, but that
I think you're thinking of the healthy segment. Maybe. No,
not at all.
So I don't know. I never, when I evaluate brands, I don't look at the segment.
Yeah.
I look at the brand as it stands, what it's offering.
Yeah.
What do you have in mind?
I think we're missing the smaller licensed venues. You're in London, you're in Montreal, because I grew up in Montreal, you're in Paris, wherever you are. You have a neighborhood restaurant where you're home, you're tired with your wife, you don't want to cook, or you don't want you don't want her to cook. Let's go out and have dinner at this place or that place. I think the licensed venues are still too grandiose, too formal, too grandiose. You don't have the local eateries or the neighborhood restaurants or stuff like that are smaller. You can go there and have a bite to eat, have a glass of wine, have that, and then just come back home. I think that's a segment, and I think as reforms continue and as legislation changes, I think that's a segment that's going to explode, especially in the more of the community neighborhoods that we have in Dubai. Because today, again, you want to go enjoy a dinner, and a lot of people, not me necessarily, I'm not a big drinker, I'm a social drinker, so a lot of people refuse to go out to a restaurant if they can't have alcohol. I have friends like that who say, what's the point if I can't have a glass of wine? There's no point for you going to a restaurant. I think that's a segment that's going to be quite that's the next big thing. Anyway,
I mean, we don't work with alcohol, so
I know
that's something that we don't explore. But there are a lot of sectors. I mean, health sector is one of them. The healthy offering in Dubai is not that big. It's something that's booming, in the US. You look at, healthy, whether it's, keto diets or vegan or
But you don't think that there's a lot of that in Dubai? I mean, with all the kcals and all that, and the meal plans and
I think compared to the rest of whatever is offered there, it's minute at this point. But it's a reflection of the demand too. It's a reflection of the demand.
All right, so we've talked about Walid. We've talked about Lavoya. We've talked about the past. We've talked about the present. Let's talk a bit about the future. We're with an industry expert in terms of F&B. Let's talk a bit where you see things going in general. Where do you see the general dining experience in Dubai heading to in the next 5 years? Do you see, like we were saying, more formal venues, or do you see more casual venues? Do you see any trends in your day-to-day business about people wanting, for example, to pay more for food, pay less for food, want more healthy food? Or what are the trends that you see where you think Dubai will head in the next 5 years?
So just to look at the future and try to predict, I'll be very honest with you, I have no idea. I have no idea. But what I can tell you is, looking at the trends that happened in the post-COVID, I think COVID was an interesting sort of inflection point. And post-COVID, I think what changed, not necessarily what people want or demanded or so on, but the way they consumed. So, this delivery business,
Crazy.
I remember,
Crazy.
running Zata Rosette, and we had a delivery fleet bigger than Deliveroo at that time. And, Deliveroo came to us and asked us to deliver for us. And I will not take the meeting. I promise you, I did not take the meeting.
Not interested in giving you any of my money.
Why am I doing that? I have my own, Fast forward,
they became demand generators.
You can't live without them, right? And their competitors as well, not just them. So the idea of how do you consume, and then not only did it change the way that you as a consumer consume and order food and delivery and so on, it also changed the financial model of restaurant operators. So now there is a percentage above 20% that you have to deal with. Where are you going to come?
Where are you going
to come up with it, right? So the idea is now, people who are successful, I think, who are the people who adjusted their business models to deal with these challenges. And I think the key to that, and I think that's a trend that's going to continue, smaller. And I'm not talking about fine dining. I'm talking more about casual dining, fast food. You're going to have smaller footprint, more efficient operational cost, so that your cost is controlled in a way where you can able to afford.
Interesting. That's a very good point. Speaking of trends and how the trend is going in that way, which trend in FMB do you wish would just go away? What's a trend that you see that just annoys you?
Delivery.
Well,
you get rid of the 20%
but you just said it. I mean, delivery is essential to your business. People want everything with a click now. So that's something that's going to continue.
Well, if I have to wish, I wish competition would disappear. When we opened Five Guys in Saudi Arabia, again, we were so successful. People were lining up. We opened at 10 o'clock in the morning, and people were lining up outside the store. We didn't even order we didn't offer breakfast. It was for the burgers, dream, right? Lovely, right? Yeah. But then, a little bit later, that burger, or it's not burger, it's the better burger sector sort of exploded. And at one point,
the high-end burger call it,
the high end. And at one point, we looked at it, and there were 40 homegrown Saudi brands in the burger sector. Homegrown in Riyadh alone. Imagine, not stores, just brands.
So I remember that trend where everybody was doing burger stores.
And it's still there, by the way. And the same thing happened with cafes now. The specialty coffee shops in Saudi Arabia are popping everywhere. So competition is something I'd love to get rid of. If I can, if you have any recipe.
It's not going to happen. Walid, here's one. If you had to start all over again, what would you do differently? General question. I mean, it's a cliche question, but if you had to start all over again, let's say from the beginnings of Kravia or Kravia,
I would start all over again and have zero partners.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think partnership is a challenge?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is a challenge.
A lot of people say that.
I partnered up with all kinds of people in the last 20, 30 years, really.
Why do people partner with other people? Do you think it's because they don't want to do it alone? Do you think it's because they need the money, or do you think it's because just easier to not take all the responsibility?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I think for different reasons. So I can look at my partners and tell you why I think they partnered up with me. It's, I bring in the know-how, the experience.
And a track record.
But why did I partner up with them? I mean, they bring in the money, they bring in, a little bit of an added value, but there was absolutely
Was there some times where you took on partners where you didn't need to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why? That's my question.
Because I was,
Do you feel better?
I'm an entrepreneur. I have, the guts, but I was chicken enough to do it on my own.
So that's what it is.
I'll confess.
So you wanted to share that responsibility with someone.
I say, you know what? If somebody's taking a big part of the risk, why not?
Walid, what do you want your legacy to be? To your children? I've met your daughter recently, a lovely young lady. What do you want your, you sat here and you spoke to me about your father and the stories that he was telling you and how he started all this from an 800 rial salary and so on. What do you want your children to remember you for? What do you want your friends to remember you for? I can tell you your friends, from having sat with them, telling me, speak of you as a gentleman, of somebody who's brilliant and bright, and some of the people that work with you have told me that you're somebody that's tough but fair, somebody that's a visionary, that's not afraid of anything. What do you want your children to remember? What do you want Dubai, Let's call it. Let's go grandiose. Let's go grand. What do you want Dubai to remember of Walid Hajj, long after you've exited this industry and long after you're active? Let's not go to life, but long after you're part of the active population. What do you want? Because at this point, I don't think it's the money. No. You've done very well for yourself. Well done. I don't think it's the accomplishment. You've accomplished quite a bit. What is it that you want to leave behind at this point? What is it that you want people to remember you for?
I think it's two different things, right? The one thing is for my kids. With my kids, the only legacy I'd like to leave behind is, that he was a good father, gave us good values, and made us happy, and allowed us to be happy and to be ourselves. Honestly, nothing more, nothing less. And with my kids, I tell them, the criteria, we were just talking about it walking into here. My daughter is looking for a job. My advice to her is just go there, and if you feel that you're going to be happy, go for it. Forget the company name.
And you could probably put her in any job with one phone call, and you're not doing that, which says a lot about you.
I think I try to help. Honestly, my parents dedicated their lives for their children. Me and my wife dedicate our lives for our children. I'll do anything for my children, right? And I'm sure you feel the same. So for me, I just want them to remember me as someone who helped them be happy. I think honestly, that's all I can think about. That's
a good summary of it. What do you want people to remember you for?
I think I want people to remember me as someone who's a family man, decent, aggressive in business and knows what he's doing. I don't care about, being smart. I don't care about, rich. Honestly, all these things, labels, I can care less about. And to be honest as well, sometimes I wonder if I really care about what people think. People think after I care about my family.
I think the older we get and the older our family gets, the less we care about that. That's my experience.
I agree with you 100%. And I think, there is this transition in expectations and in life,
of course,
sort of what you expect of life. I mean, even mixing with people and today
your circle of friends becomes
smaller and smaller. My time is so valuable. I don't want to waste it. If I don't like you, I'm not going to mix up with you.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And I'm going through that. We're both going through that, I guess, because I get into arguments with my wife all the time. Like, I don't want to go out to dinner with these people because I don't feel like seeing them. And, I have 1 or 2 days night off.
Sounds very familiar.
Exactly.
Sounds very familiar.
So Walid, thank you for keeping it real, man. Pleasure. Thank you for sharing all this with us and with our viewers. Thanks for being here. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you, Habib.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast and the experiences that Walid shared with us, and hope to see you soon.